This is Fearless Careerist with Dr. Catherine Robert. On this episode, Catherine speaks with Dr. Elizabeth Dale about her work raising millions of dollars for universities, her decades of experience in leadership, and her consulting practice. As the founder of Chilmark Nexus Advisors, Dr. Dale brings ideas to intention.
I knew I needed development experience to be a university president. So I sent an email to the chancellor at the time and said, here are 8 good reasons why you should appoint me the interim vice chancellor for university advancement.
Right.
Never mind, I had no experience directly in advancement.
Here's Catherine Robert.
How do scientists find the big money needed to develop world-changing technology? They turn to highly skilled development and advancement professionals who are integral to moving a great idea from a laboratory to application in the real world. Dr. Elizabeth Dale is one of those amazing people with the ability to connect funders with opportunities to change the world, and she joins us here today. Welcome, Elizabeth.
Thank you, Catherine.
You went directly from your bachelor's in home economics into food service management for a company that services universities. Did you know when you started college what you wanted to do after graduation?
What I knew when I started college was that I wanted a career on a college or university campus. I just felt so at home in that setting. And the business background I had during my undergraduate years, my final 6 months, I actually worked as an intern for the Saga Food Services Company, who at the time managed food services on college and university campuses. And during that 6 months, they got to know me. And when I graduated, they made a job offer I just couldn't refuse. Not only was it a really interesting opportunity, but I was placed in one of the top management training programs at the time.
Wow, it's exciting. You must have been flattered so early to already be put into a leadership role.
I can only appreciate it now. I was 21 years of age and I was actually managing people and managing money and managing a perishable inventory. And when I reflect back now on my early 20s, I cringe at some of the mistakes I made because I lacked the experience and the perspective to actually be managing people.
Yeah. Do you remember any perishable food that went bad?
No, but I remember reflecting on how I could have handled personnel decisions much better, and I learned so much from that very early immersion with that level of responsibility,
Yeah.
coupled with the investment that they made in me to put me through their management training program. And for those of you that are in my age bracket, you'll remember management by objectives.
Oh, yes. I remember it very much. Well, their investment paid off, as we're going to learn here in this episode. How did you apply for and get that first job out of college?
They invited me to apply after my 6 months serving as an intern. I'm one of these people that's kind of able to see an end game and how to get there. And I was working at the William Patterson College and was providing input in marketing in their cash operations. And I could see how they could increase sales and how
Mhm.
they could market better. And I executed a marketing plan, and sales went up substantially. So they invited me to meet with the head of human resources.
Oh, wow. That's exciting. And you had mentioned that you served in a few different universities, but ultimately you decided to leave food service. What made you leave that?
Well, my first assignment was at Clarkson College, which is now Clarkson University in Potsdam, New York, and they had a terrific career opportunity for me to work at the University of Massachusetts Amherst and also coordinate marketing in their cash operations in New England. And I did that for a number of years. And then Saga lost the account at UMass Amherst, and UMass Amherst made me a really great offer. And I wanted to earn both my master's and ultimately my doctoral degrees. And I could do that while working for the university.
So there was a little overlap in the skills needed from the food service management with marketing, right? In terms of marketing the food services to the university, and was that the kind of the overlap that led you to work in marketing?
I think my whole life I've seen the world through a marketing lens.
Hmm.
And when I was working at UMass Amherst, I could see the impact that I had on the cash operations within the food services and the catering, and they like the energy that I brought to that work. And so they made just a terrific job offer, and I then spent 25 years at the University of Massachusetts, entering with the title of marketing coordinator and leaving with the title of vice chancellor for university advancement and the founding executive director of the UMass Amherst Foundation.
Wow, that's quite a climb.
Right. In fact, I I actually signed my own 25-year service award
That's
because I was the vice chancellor for my division.
Oh, wow. Well, before you became vice chancellor, you were going to graduate school, as you mentioned, for your master's degree, and working full time in your new marketing role. How was that experience for you?
It was challenging, but I took one course. Rarely would I take two simultaneously,
Hmm.
and it worked well for me. I also I moved from marketing coordinator to the director of the conference services program. And I actually stayed in that job for 13 years, and that's when I earned my 2 degrees. Um, at the beginning of my appointment to Director of Conference Services is when
Hmm.
I gave birth um, to our daughter. And by staying in the same position for so long, I had a tremendous amount of flexibility to to be a great mother,
Hmm.
hopefully, and also earned my 2 degrees and after all those years, really understood how to manage the Department of Conference Services.
Oh, wow. At what point did you decide that you wanted to become a university president?
So after I finished my doctoral degree in higher education policy and administration, UMass Amherst nominated me to be an American Council on Education Fellow for a year. And I had sought out that nomination because I had my sights on becoming a college president when I started my doctoral program.
Hmm.
I'd been teaching for most of my years at UMass Amherst
Hmm.
in the Department of Hotel, Restaurant, and Travel Administration. I
Hmm.
taught the marketing course. I taught the conference services course. I actually they had a branch in Brigg, Switzerland, at the International College of Hospitality Administration, and I had taught there for a semester. So
Fun.
I was actually part-time faculty and attended faculty meetings.
Hmm.
Um, my responsibilities grew at the university, so I was managing buildings and facility services, had
Hmm.
responsibility for some student organizations, and what was really missing in my career to be a president was working in development.
Okay. So it's really interesting. I'm fascinated to hear that there are both formal and informal training programs for people interested in pursuing a presidency. And as you mentioned, you were awarded the prestigious ACE Fellowship, which prepares leaders in higher education. Can you tell us more about the fellowship? What do the activities entail?
was an extraordinary experience, just extraordinary. I was a fellow from 1999 to 2000. The program's been in existence for 50 years. When I was a fellow, there were about 32 people in the program, and you are selected as a fellow and nominated by your home institution. And I selected the University of Delaware as my host institution. So for an entire year, I shadowed Dr. David Roselle because I felt he was just an extraordinary leader in public higher education, and what he had done at Delaware was remarkable. And he had had 5 American Council on Education fellows prior to me, so the campus was accustomed to having a fellow. I mean, there was only one meeting in a year that I was excluded from, and that was with one of their major benefactors.
Mhm.
So I learned from Dr. Roselle and his cabinet, and then 3 times during the year, all the fellows came together for 1 week
Mhm.
of classes, and in addition to a pretty rigorous class schedule, we'd work on case studies, so close bonds formed among the fellows and among other fellows in other classes, and I served on the board for the ACE Fellows Program for a number of years upon the completion of my fellowship. Uh,
Right.
and when you look at the careers of my fellow fellows and their titles, you can really see a direct link between the opportunity that we had and what they've accomplished in their careers.
Right. So Delaware, did you have to move or was it close enough to drive?
I commuted by plane.
Oh.
So there's a small airport in Newark, Delaware, and we were in Western Massachusetts, close to Hartford. And so maybe 3 out of 4 weekends, I would fly down to Newark, and then there were many school breaks where I'd be home. Um, the 9 months went by in the blink of an eye. We were
Yeah.
also given a travel budget. It was $15,000, and I used my entire travel budget to organize a trip for myself and 2 other fellows to
Mhm.
Hong Kong to study their higher education system. We were there for 6 weeks, living in an apartment at the City University. My
Mhm.
daughter was 13 at the time, and I brought her and her best friend.
Oh, wow. How fun. Was the higher education radically different in Hong Kong?
Yes. Um, there at that time, there was a system where, children would begin preparation as soon as they could read and write and comprehend for
Mhm.
that one exam that was going to place them in an institution of higher education. One exam.
Wow.
And Hong Kong was in the midst of disassembling that system, and we worked with leadership to my doctoral dissertation is in faculty development,
Mhm.
and we worked with the administration of the City University of Hong Kong because surprisingly, the greatest resistance was from the faculty.
Mhm.
So the faculty were so accustomed to teaching the cream of the crop,
Oh, yeah.
like the brightest, the most elite, the most driven students, and a decision was made that squelched creativity, and
Mhm.
creativity was equally important. And so my colleagues and I mean, that's what we consulted on, and that's what we worked on, and we learned far more from them than I think they learned from us.
Oh, wow. That's so
But
interesting.
it was we visited all of the major universities in Hong Kong and were certainly welcomed.
Oh, wow. So you moved from your role then as director of conferences into advancement to fill that gap in your resume after the fellowship. Okay. So then you're new to advancement. How did that go?
So it's been really interesting since, we first had a chat earlier in the week.
Hmm.
I've been more reflective on my career, and I'm sure this happens with all of the people that you interview.
Hmm.
It's It's not something I normally reflect on, but I've been really reflective over the last couple of days.
Mhm.
And uh, I've been thinking about this concept of fearless. And
Right.
what does fearless really mean? And when I think about my career, like, there was really only one instance where I had applied for a position and went through a normal search.
Mhm.
So when I could see an opportunity at UMass Amherst, I knew many of the benefactors from my senior executive role in conference services, businesses, facility services. Like, I knew them,
Right.
and I knew I needed development experience to be a university president. So I sent an email to the chancellor at the time and said, "Here are 8 good reasons why you should appoint me the interim vice chancellor for university advancement." Never
Right.
mind, I had no experience directly in advancement.
Uh-huh.
And a couple months later, he called me and said, "Talked it over with the board, and we think this is a good solution, and we're going to name you the interim vice chancellor." So I came in at the top of the organization, but
Wow.
I knew the campus, I knew the benefactors.
Mhm.
I intuitively, I think, at that point in my career had become a better manager of people and resources
Mhm.
and execution, and fully believed in the mission.
Right. Right. So, was it hard to fundraise?
The groundwork was there,
Mhm.
and then subsequently, the chancellor that put me in that position retired, and the incoming chancellor, Chancellor John Lombardi, was one of the top fundraisers in the country. He had come from the University of Florida, and he took me under his wing
Ah.
and helped me develop, and, like, together, we created a foundation for the university, which to this day has served it well in terms of building a culture of philanthropy and a culture of giving, which
Mhm.
is more difficult in state universities than private universities.
Mhm. Yes, I attended a state school. Um, okay. So, you were successful, as you mentioned, started the foundation and raised, was it 225,000,000?
Yes.
But then after 25 years at UMass Amherst, you made a move to Drexel University. What made you do that?
I thought it was time. It was I've been in the same place. My daughter was going off to college, and I thought I would explore other opportunities because I was either going to do it then in Western Massachusetts. One of the top fundraising jobs is at the preeminent university, UMass
Mhm.
Amherst, and so there really wasn't any other career opportunity that was more impactful
Right.
in my geography. So if I wanted to advance, I needed to move to another institution and actually another geography. And I saw an advertisement in the Chronicle of Higher Education for the position at Drexel, and I thought this would be good practice.
Mhm.
And went through the process, and the position had been vacant for 18 months.
Oh, that's a long
And they
time.
had a hard time
Yeah.
finding the right match with the
Mhm.
president and his wife, because at that level, it's a team, president and their spouse. I mean, fundraising at that level is a team.
Right.
And we just all clicked and launched a campaign, Dream It, Do It, Drexel. And it it was a bit of a transition because I'd never lived in a city before.
Mhm.
You know,
Oh,
I
really?
yeah, well, I know. I'd not lived in a
Wow.
city. I'd not lived in an apartment building.
Uh-huh.
Like, just all the logistics of, well, how do I get the groceries from my
Oh,
car to
I
my
had that when moving to Chicago.
yeah, the logistics of living in a city,
Yeah.
um, were difficult, but I I had a great team,
Mhm.
and I remained friends with many of the people who were on my original Drexel team, and they knew where I came from, and they helped me make that transition.
Oh, it's wonderful. Yeah. But then you did start applying for president jobs now that you were showing real success in the advancement world, and you got close as a finalist in 2 cases, but then ultimately did not get a presidency. Was it frustrating?
It was frustrating, and I was disappointed in myself. And through that process, came to realize that the primary reason, and I've been in multiple searches. I think the primary reason, and this is what the search firms also confirmed, was that I never held a tenured position.
Mhm.
And I had great management skills and development skills. I had taught, so I'd been in the classroom for many years, but what I lacked was tenure.
Mhm.
And that was really, really important to the faculty members on the search committees.
Mhm.
But in the end, like, I've had such a great career in development. I think it was just meant to be.
Right.
And I'm not sure if I would have been as successful as a university president as I have been as a chief development officer.
Right. And ultimately, you did raise $425 million at Drexel and built out their development department, right?
Mhm.
Then you reached out to Thomas Jefferson University hospitals. Why?
People in the advancement field usually move on when a campaign is completed, and then a new president came in, and the new president has their agenda. I think the closest relationship on a campus is between the chief development officer, the
Mhm.
cabinet relationships, and the president of the institution.
Mhm.
You need to be able to communicate without speaking.
Mhm.
Need to be totally on the same page. I can recall instances where the president and I would go and visit with someone, and we were thinking about a $5 million gift, and when we get to their office, like, we see the photos of all of their homes, or there are so many other clues. And so we need to be able to look at each other without speaking, because we're
Right.
sitting across the desk, and know that five's not the right number. And so you have to have that kind of rapport. And the presidents, like John Lombardi, chose me, and Taki Papadakis chose me. And then, may he rest in peace, President Papadakis, an interim president of an interim president came in, then a full-time president, and it's very, very typical for the new president to choose their own development officer.
All right.
And so when I reflect on my career and, you know, being fearless, I knew that Stephen Klasko was coming in as the new CEO and president of Thomas Jefferson, the hospital system, the university, and the Sidney Kimmel Medical College. And I asked a friend of mine if she knew Steve Klasko, and she said, "Oh, I'm having dinner with he and his wife." It was a Friday night.
Mhm.
And I said, "Well, ask him if he needs a chief development officer." And so she did. And then he said, "Have her call me on Sunday." So we spoke on the phone on
Mhm.
Sunday.
Wow.
And then the following Sunday, we met for dinner with the person who was in charge of marketing and development at the time.
Mhm.
And we had just a great, like, 3-hour dinner. And then we set a time to speak on Wednesday. And I explained to Steve that I really can't go through a search process because it would undermine all my relationships at Drexel. And if he felt it worked, I'd love to be his chief advancement officer. And
Right.
so by Friday, I had an offer letter.
Wow.
So, like, yeah, like, you don't want to be reckless, but to have the confidence to be fearless, to know what you want. Rejection really isn't failure. Like, rejection is, I view it as a learning opportunity. And then Steve and I just had this terrific run. Uh,
Right.
we
Where
raised,
you had that ability to communicate without talking to each other, right? As you mentioned.
yeah, and we were on the same page, and his skills and my skills complemented each other.
Mhm.
And he could light up a room with 5,000 people, or sit across from one person, and his communication skills were just so attuned and he was such a great listener, and we were great partners. We still work together now, and we're still very good friends.
Yeah, that's awesome. You established a unique specialty in medical fundraising at Jefferson and have now built a successful consulting practice. How do you help companies with their fundraising needs in this current role?
In between in between my time at Jefferson and starting my own company, I worked for about 18 months for a company called Startup Health,
Hmm.
which has successfully helped launch 4 or 500 very early stage healthcare companies. And that was such an incredible opportunity for me. I learned so much um, about the innovation, the health sector, the startup culture,
Right.
and um, in some ways, it gave me the confidence to think about being an entrepreneur myself
Hmm.
and starting my own company. And so I incorporated on April 17th a couple years ago, and my had my first client on May 1st.
Wow.
And like the niche I've developed is to help nonprofit organizations that are on the precipice of tremendous growth
Hmm.
and impact build the culture of philanthropy. Like
Okay.
that's what I do.
Yeah.
Help build the culture of philanthropy, provide whatever kinds of services or insights they need, and then help them find the right development officer. So when I'm no longer needed, that's
Hmm.
when I'm the most successful.
That's awesome. Yeah, it takes quite a bit of money, right, to bring a medical device or technology into actual use, right? You have to either have a kind of a proof of concept in the theoretical form and then translate that into studies and mock-ups and, several iterations of that, right?
I have a number of nonprofit 501(c)(3) nonprofit clients,
Mhm.
and I have one for-profit client called CraniUS Therapeutics,
Mhm.
and just was part of the team that helped them raise a Series B round,
Mhm.
and it will probably come in somewhere between 19 and $20 million,
Mhm.
which should get them to the point where their medical device is through clinical studies and through the first set of processes with the FDA and makes the company ripe for an acquisition. And just like all of my other clients, the
Mhm.
reason I joined their team as a consultant was that they are so mission driven. The story is just incredible. The
Mhm.
founder of the company is Dr. Chad Gordon, who's a neuroplastic surgeon at
Mhm.
Johns Hopkins. And neuroplastic surgery is the surgery that takes place before and after a neurosurgeon is operating on your brain. So someone needs to take out a piece of your skull to allow access.
Right.
And then sometimes they are able to replace that piece of skull. Many, many times they replace it with an implant. And
Okay.
Dr. Gordon developed a cranial implant that helped people that had had this type of surgery
Mhm.
return to their normal aesthetic instead of having a concave indention in the skull.
Mhm.
And as he stood in the operating room watching these surgeries and cases like glioblastoma, it's a young man, he's in his 30s, he has 3 kids,
Mhm.
and glioblastoma is a death sentence. He thought, what if we created a chamber in that device and added catheters and a port, like, folks with breast cancer have a port to
Mhm.
inject medication. What if we could inject medication to the brain because the brain has what's called the blood-brain barrier? So the blood vessels in the brain can't transport medication to the tissue like the rest of the body, and
Right.
bypassing the blood-brain been a challenge for
Right.
over 100 years. And
Wow.
so he designed and built out this device called the NeuroPass, started the company called CraniUS Therapeutics, and now I've been with them for 15 months. But this is a mission-driven organization, and I just love working with all of them.
Wow. That's so exciting because as I saw on their website, it will deliver that medication to help people with all kinds of brain-based diseases such as Alzheimer's.
Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, um, n neuro an any of the neurodegenerative diseases
Mhm.
and brain cancers. As we advance through the beginning of our clinical stages, the device can also be used for diagnostics. So you can put medication in, but you also can take fluids out.
Oh, that's cool. Wow. We talked about some early leadership challenges that you had. Any other thoughts on leadership lessons that you learned along the way since so much of your career has been in leadership itself?
Something I've done just intuitively since I was a child is helping people.
Mhm.
And in my career, like, if someone needs help, I volunteer and keep my commitments.
Mhm.
And so many of like, I've not had to advertise for my consulting business. People just come to me.
Mhm.
And I think part of that is this ecosystem that I have created where if someone needs help, I will do everything possible to help them with whether it's their career or when I was at Jefferson helping people navigate the health system or physicians at Jefferson who had like that was a favorite part of my work at Jefferson, working with physicians that had dreams. Like there
Right.
was a physician who had a dream to create a refugee health center because Jefferson was really good at refugee health but had no center. And like it was his dream. And during the pandemic, we opened the doors, vaccinated 5,000 families. And so this helping physicians realize their dreams, like then put me in this network with the physicians and with the benefactors and this mode of helping
Mhm.
and expect nothing in return. And it creates this ecosystem around you where people want to be in your universe. And there's also, tremendous satisfaction in being able to help people. I saw someone LinkedIn site the other day, and when I was very early at Drexel,
Mhm.
he was what they call a case intern,
Mhm.
a person of color, and he was in their internship program. We took him into Drexel and worked with him for a year, and he's chief development officer now. I was just so happy for him because I can remember as a very young person, like saying, I want to be like you. I want to be a chief development officer someday.
Mhm.
So you just never know. Being kind and being helpful is one of those lessons that, I'm fortunate in that it comes easy for me.
That's good advice. You've held high-powered, demanding roles for decades. Were there trade-offs to always being on call and working 24/7?
Yes. I mean, I don't play golf. Too time
Darn.
consuming. um, but when I think about my daughter,
Mhm.
like when I was like the lead conference planner for
Mhm.
the Association of Conference Directors International, maybe she was 4 or 5 years old, and I was the lead for this huge meeting in Orlando, and I would just take her with me. I took her when I was in my doctoral program, she was an infant, I'd bring her in a basket to the classes. I took her to this conference that I was running, and of course, I had the 2.5 days of the conference, I could spend no time with her, but you could pay Disney to, send a person to take your kid to, the parks. And when I finally took her to the park, she was very disappointed because we had to wait in line.
Oh, that's
But,
hilarious.
you know, there 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 are definite trade-offs. There are things I'm sure she was disappointed I was not available for, but then, we had resources to do things as a family that we would not have had resources to do. And she's an only child, and she was in Amherst College had opened a daycare center like a few weeks before she was born,
Oof.
and she was accepted into that program because not many Amherst College faculty had children at the time. Three or four of her best friends some live in Boston, others live in Atlanta, but she is still friends with some of those children, and,
Oh, that's
we're
great.
friends with their parents. And so for an only child, she's developed some friendships and some bonds that she may not have had if she hadn't been in that situation.
Yeah.
But there are always trade-offs. I
Yeah.
mean, especially when you're a chief development officer and you're working in a hospital setting and a major benefactor ends up in the emergency room. During the pandemic, of course, families were not allowed in the emergency room, and one of our major benefactors, a woman I was extremely fond of, fell and had
Scary.
some pretty severe injuries. I had New Year's Eve dinner early with my partner, and we were just going to relax. But then, like 7:30, I got the call, and because I had an ID because I worked with these physicians, I was able to go and sit with her that evening and communicate with her family. And then she was going out to a New Year's Eve party, and she literally was wearing the family jewels. And and so I took all of her jewelry.
Oh, wow.
But,
Well, if
um,
they're a major benefactor for the university, the least
yeah,
they can
right.
do,
Right. I and then her daughter came and picked it up the next day. But you have to have partners
Mhm,
that understand, that are pretty self-sufficient and are your cheerleaders and supporters and confidants and
mhm.
advisors, and that's not for everybody. I'm fortunate to have a really great partner. We've been together for 17 years, and like the, he also knew this woman, and like he was concerned about her, so like it wasn't as much of an issue as it might be for someone else.
Oh, wow. Okay, last question. What advice do you have for young professionals who are just getting started in their careers?
So I've been thinking a bit about this, and actually made a few notes. I really love the title of this podcast, Fearless. I mean, what a great word. And what I advise young people is be fearless in your confidence even before you feel ready. Confidence isn't arrogance, it's really a decision. And if you wait to feel qualified, you'll always be late to the game. Most successful people grow into the roles after stepping into them.
Mhm.
And it's my observation over many years, men never hesitate to take a job that they're not qualified for, not fully qualified. Like they never hesitate. I can
Yeah,
do that,
yeah,
and that's what I encourage my female colleagues. Have the confidence, and confidence isn't arrogance, and always be in a learning mode. Like
right.
like at least 2 or 3 books on tape going simultaneously, so I don't waste any time. There's so many meaningless things you need to do, like empty the dishwasher, water your plants. And so, like, I optimize that time to be listening to all kinds of books and podcasts like yours. The other lesson that I learned early on was competence is power. You need to do the work. Learn your craft, and preparation gives you courage because you know that you've earned your seat. Um, and excellence is a form of fearlessness. Be on top of your game. I think of the number of times, because I've never forgotten them, where I've been sitting around the table and I knew the answer. Like I knew the next step or the course, and I hesitated, and somebody else jumped in, and so even what's the worst that's going to happen if it's a mistake? and speaking up for yourself is really important. And
Yeah.
then I also think about curiosity. I've been curious for most of my life. I've also had this common thread of taking care of myself.
Mhm.
And I think part of it has to do with my competitive nature. I used to run in road races when I was in New England. I was a competitive cross-country skier. At the end of this month, I'm going to Costa Rica to learn how to surf for a week. I've never surfed before. So being curious, adventuresome, and I think it's even easier now. I have a meditation app, I have a yoga app, I have a weightlifting app. And then Steve Klasko, my CEO at Jefferson, very early on was involved with Aura. And as a gift, he gave me an Aura ring. So I'm like 5 years into my Aura ring,
Oh, wow. That's
and it
great
has
data.
like modified so many of my behaviors. I'll want to get a crown, and so I will work out. I'll go to bed earlier to take
That's
care of yourself. And, then building a life in addition to your resume. I have a few close friends that I have a friend and we've been pen pals since we were 8 years old.
wow.
And I'm going to make a trip out west to see her. My college roommate's coming to visit in March. I have a handful of people that I've been very close to, my sisters and brother. I think that's important also.
Right. Wow. It's amazing. Dr. Elizabeth Dale, it has been a true pleasure having you as my guest. Thank you for sharing today.
No, it's actually been a privilege and a great pleasure for me because I hadn't really taken time out to reflect. And
Yeah.
this has really been a reflective exercise for me, making me feel grateful to the people who have helped me along the way
Yeah.
and inspiring me to continue to be helpful and grateful to those that allow me to be part of their lives.
Yeah. We'll keep passing it down, won't we?
Yeah, absolutely. And I wish you all the best with your new endeavor.
Thank you so much. To learn more about Elizabeth's current work with medical device pioneers and other startup companies, see the link in our show notes. I'm so excited you're here. And remember, you're not alone on your career journey. Together, we can share our stories, move boldly into that perfect job, and we can light the path for our future fearless careerists. I'm Catherine Robert, and I can't wait to hear your story.
Fearless Careerist is available on Spotify, iTunes, and YouTube. Subscribe there or visit us at catherinerobertedd.com.